I came to the Hamptons expecting a quiet birthday week with my girlfriend. Instead, she stood up, humiliated me for being too broke, and her father threw a $100 bill at me like I was trash. They didn't know I'm the founder of a multi-million-dollar shipping empire. My name's Adam, I'm 30, and honestly I never thought I'd be the type of guy writing a long rant online, but here we are. I guess when life kicks you in the teeth in front of 20 strangers on a patio overlooking the Atlantic, you start needing strangers to hear the full story, because the people who were supposed to have your back sure didn't. I've been keeping my wealth quiet for years. Not to play games, not to trap anyone, but because I learned early how fast people change the second they think you have money. I grew up middle class in Ohio and built my software for maritime freight routing, basically locked in a tiny Brooklyn apartment with 3 monitors and a coffee addiction. When a conglomerate bought most of it for $200 million, I didn't celebrate. I panicked. Suddenly, everyone wanted something. People who ignored me before pretended we were lifelong friends. Dates went from, hey, want tacos, to so what kind of car do you drive? It all felt fake. So I decided to live low-key. Old Honda, plain clothes, renting a modest one-bedroom in Astoria, even though I own a penthouse in Manhattan that I barely use except when I need privacy. I wanted someone who loved me for me. Then I met Natalie. She worked in digital marketing, had a laugh that felt like sunshine, and a habit of ordering expensive cocktails she couldn't really pronounce. At first, she seemed grounded enough. She teased me for my cheap watch. I teased her for her obsession with Instagram filters. But little things showed up over time. Comments about how ambitious women need partners on their level. How her dad, Martin, hates people with no drive. How it's embarrassing to take the subway because it smells like failure. I overlooked a lot. That's on me. I thought maybe she just cared too much about appearances because she grew up around people who judged everything. I figured she'd soften. I figured wrong. When she invited me to Hamptons for her dad's 61st birthday week, I hesitated. Something in my gut twisted. But she insisted. Please, Adam. He'll like you if you try. Just dress a little nicer. And maybe leave the Honda at home. Dad's particular. Particular turned out to be a euphemism for deeply unpleasant, aggressively snobbish, and convinced he's Rockefeller reincarnated. The moment we arrived, Martin looked me up and down like I was a smudge on his shoes. He didn't even shake my hand. So you're the boyfriend, he said, not a question, more like an accusation. Natalie chimed in cheerfully. He works in logistics, which was a cover story I used any time someone asked about my job. Martin squinted at me. Logistics sounds like code for, I don't know, you drive delivery trucks. Back-end optimization, I replied, software side. He nodded slowly, in that condescending way people do when they think they've already solved the puzzle of who you are and decided you're insignificant. Things went downhill fast. The guest cottage they put me in was basically a glorified shed behind the pool pump house. Natalie stayed in the main estate because Dad wants me close to the family. At meals, her relatives acted like I was invisible. Someone asked if people in Queens even know what real wine tastes like. Another joke that my shoes looked like something Target rejected. I tried to laugh it off. I tried to be gracious. I tried. Wednesday was a golf incident. I don't care about golf, but I can swing. Martin invited me along. Or I should say he invited me to carry everyone else's clubs because we didn't plan ahead. His brother Dean kept calling me the logistics guy every time he wanted water. And then there was Eric, a hedge fund analyst who definitely had a thing for Natalie. He spent 4 hours reminding everyone how much his bonus was and how many vacations he'd taken this year. At one point he asked, "So, Adam, you renting Queens? That must be gritty." "It's real," I said. "Real." Martin laughed so loudly a flock of birds flew off a tree. That's poor people code for I can't afford anything better. I swallowed my pride so hard I'm surprised it didn't lodge permanently in my throat. The worst part wasn't the comments. It was the way Natalie smiled politely at every insult, like she didn't want to rock the boat, like defending me was beneath her. On Thursday morning, I brought her coffee the way she likes it, almond milk, 2 pumps of vanilla, no foam. She took it without even looking at me. Thanks. Just set it down. Eric's telling me about his trip to Greece. I waited a few seconds for her to at least acknowledge me. She didn't. Nat, I asked quietly. She sighed like I was ruining her spa day. I'm busy, Adam. God, you're so clingy this week. That hurt more than all the insults her family threw at me combined. I walked to the beach alone, sat on the sand, watched the waves, thought about the ridiculous contrast between my bank account and the way I was being treated like a charity case. And that's when the realization hit me like a freight train. She was embarrassed by me, not disappointed, not stressed, embarrassed. She wasn't in love with me. She was passing time with me, keeping her spot warm until someone better came along. And Eric, with his rented BMW and inflated ego, was exactly the upgrade she thought she deserved. I decided right then that I wasn't going to end it. I wanted to see who she really was. I got my answer that night. The whiteout dinner party. Everyone wearing white linen except me because the scratchy, too small shirt I bought from a beach shop was all they had in my size. They seated me at the far end next to an aunt who fell asleep during appetizers and a teenager filming TikToks every 3 seconds. Natalie was at the head of the table next to her dad, champagne in hand, laughing louder than the jokes warranted. And then God, the spoon. She tapped it against her glass until the whole patio fell silent. I think we've all been polite long enough. She announced like she was giving a TED Talk nobody asked for. She straightened her dress, took a breath, and looked directly at me with this rehearsed determination. Adam, it's not realistic anymore. My stomach dropped. Look around, she continued. This is the life I'm building. I need someone who matches that. Someone who isn't dragging me down to a tax bracket I don't belong in. People laughed. Actually laughed. I felt my face burn. Then Martin, smug, drunk, and enjoy himself far too much, pulled out a $100 bill, tossed it toward me, and said, "Take the bus back to the city, kid. I'll even cover the fare. Don't make a scene." It landed in the butter dish. Something in me iced over completely. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't plead. I simply nodded, pulled out my phone, and sent one text. Pickup requested. Alpha Protocol. That was it. Martin laughed again. What, calling an Uber? Something like that, I said. 2 minutes later, the vibration started. Quiet at first, then louder, rattling the glasses on the table. Heads turned. The wind picked up. Napkins flew. Hair went wild. Martin cursed. Natalie shielded her eyes. Then the helicopter crested over the dunes. Matte black. My company's insignia along the tail. A Sikorsky worth more than Martin's entire property portfolio. The pilot brought it low, kicking up sand and leaves and sending half the table screaming. When the side door slid open and Jordan, my head of security, stepped out in a tactical vest, people scrambled back like they were witnessing a hostage extraction. I finished the scotch, set the glass down calmly, and walked past the stunned guests. I stopped in front of Natalie. Her face was frozen between shock and dawning horror. "You said I couldn't afford you," I said quietly, leaning in so only she could hear. "Natalie, I spent more on the fuel to get this helicopter here than your dad made last quarter." I turned to Martin. "By the way, your commercial properties are dangerously over-leveraged. You might want to fix that before your creditors notice." His jaw hit the floor. I climbed aboard. Jordan closed the door. We lifted off, and as the estate shrank beneath us, I saw Natalie standing alone on the deck, shaking, hands half raised like she wasn't sure whether to wave or scream. The fallout was immediate. Apparently Eric filmed the whole thing and posted it online with a caption. "BRO isn't broke. Bro is billion light." My phone exploded. Calls. Messages. Natalie sent 40 texts in one night. "Adam, please talk to me. I didn't mean it. You embarrass me. My dad pressure me. Please come back." She even went to my Astoria apartment and waited outside for hours. Joke's on her. That's just a decoy address tied to a shell company I use for mail. Meanwhile, I called a friend on the board of the VC firm that was about to finalize a partnership with Martin's company. Check his financials, I told him he's misrepresenting his liquidity. Deal pulled. Funding vanished. Martin went into full meltdown, calling me from different numbers begging to fix things because we're basically family. I blocked him. A week later, I ran into both of them at a restaurant in Manhattan. Natalie looked drained, like someone had unplugged her personality. Martin looked like life had wrung him out. Adam, Natalie said, standing so fast she knocked over her water glass. Please, sit, talk. We want to apologize. If you had treated me with basic respect when you thought I was poor, I said, we wouldn't be here. Natalie grabbed my arm. I can change. Natalie, I said softly, you can't fix a problem you don't think you have. And you never saw me. Not once. She whispered, you owe me. I gave you a year of my life. That genuinely made me laugh. Not cruelly, just tiredly. I loved you, I said. You tolerated me. There's a difference. I walked away. A month passed. Martin filed for bankruptcy. Natalie fled the city to reset. Her socials disappeared after the comments got brutal. And me? I'm finally breathing again. I bought the car I always wanted, an Aston Martin, in dark green, sleek as a knife. Still haven't driven it much. Still wearing my old watch. Still eating cheap wings on Tuesdays. But last week I met someone. Her name's Lily. She's a nurse. We met in a bookstore after she dropped an entire stack of novels. She laughed at herself, not at me. When she looked at my cheap Casio, she said, cute, retro. And when we grabbed coffee, she didn't ask what I did for a living. She asked what makes me happy. I didn't tell her about the penthouse, or the company, or the helicopter. I just told her about my dog. And she smiled like that was enough. Maybe, finally, it is. And to anyone out there letting someone treat them like a placeholder, walk away. Or fly away if you must. Your worth isn't measured by what they see, only by what you finally refuse to tolerate.